Hello, people, and welcome to the first installment of the Shake It Till You Make It podcast. I am joined today by none other than Freddie McDade.
Hello, everyone.
AKA Paris is Burning. And I just wanted to start off by saying, like, Paris is Burning, sick fucking name,
Thanks.
to be honest. It's one of those names that, like, you know, when you just hear it, I think I was hearing, like, Rossi talk about when he changed his name from Ross McCormack to just Rossi.
Yeah.
You see it on, like, big posters, like, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough of the compliments. So I know we haven't seen each other in a while, right? And I think maybe we dive into a little bit of the story, how we met each other. But since we've last spoken, just run me through a bit of, like, what have you been up to? I know you've kind of done a little bit of a stint in Ibiza and then you've come back.
Yeah.
And
I mean, since I last saw you, I don't even know where to start. That was like, what?
It's a good 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago. So I suppose since leaving Birmingham, went back home for a bit. After a while, I ended up getting really into drum and bass music for a while. And then ended up going from that to Thailand for like 4 months. Came back for a bit. And then went to Ibiza for the whole summer. Now I'm back again.
Gotcha. What drove you? Was the Thailand move, like, music specific, or was it just like?
It was, to be honest, it was completely random. Like, we sort of toyed with the. Well, I went to Morocco for a holiday just before it, and started to, like, me and one of my other mates was talking about going traveling. We booked like a 2-week holiday, and he was planning on staying out there. He's going out there. He was traveling with his girlfriend at the time, and sort of building up to it, I was sort of toying with the idea, like, having in my head, like, maybe just like quit my job and just stay out there as well. But like, didn't make a decision really until I got out there. When everyone was getting the return flights, I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna stay, and then just made it work from there. Instantly lost my job because they weren't too happy that I went to Thailand. Yeah, and didn't really tell them, but ended up just selling beats along the way. And
whilst you was in Thailand? Yeah,
and that's when I felt, because it came to like, I mean, I tried to do it before, but because you have sort of like all the time in the world, not much has really happened. And when it got to the point where either if I don't make money now, then I've got nothing. Like, other side of the world, it's not a cheap flight home just to go back. It's like
you have to make the move to actually
like
get back.
Fight or flight sort of thing. But made it work. But
so you just basically, you lived off selling beats whilst you was in Thailand? Yeah. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy, to be fair, man.
But like, obviously you didn't make that much, but then you don't need that much to live out there in Thailand.
True. Yes,
everything's
very true.
Like, you can live like a multi-millionaire for like just over $1,000 a month if you do it right.
That's nuts, man.
Yeah.
Because I think that's quite interesting to take, because I think, especially for myself, I think it's only recently I've started opening my eyes to, like, what's possible in terms of, like, making a living on music. Be that whether you're doing, you know, DJing pubs and whatever, and bars and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But, like, I've never really explored the selling music online side of things.
Yeah.
And I think I've got a lot of people, like, obviously we've previously spoke about this, and then I kind of had a conversation with another one of my friends, and he was basically saying, like how? You know, like, how do you get to a point where, like, you're just selling beats to make a living out of it? Like, what was that transition like for you? Because I'm assuming, obviously, when I knew you back then, it was sort of producing tech house, DJing tech house, and obviously we can get into the gelato side in a little bit, but like, you kind of, from listening to your music now, it's a little bit of just, you know, everything.
I think the music journey I've been on has been like just everything. Like, it's been quite wild. But I got into music through playing guitar and stuff, and then decided to do it. I decided in year 10 that I was going to do music production instead of going like down a normal like finance or economics sort of route. Yeah. But then when I started doing it in college, that's when I started getting into making beats for rappers, and that's kind of that's when I sort of, I mean, I saw more of a sort of career, I had more of an interest, because no one in my area played guitar. Like, there wasn't anyone to like join a band with, so I never really like went forth with it. But everyone loves like sort of hip hop, rap, R&B, so I just started to like make beats from it, and then I mean, I gave out a few beats for free and stuff, and then obviously then after going to uni, that's when I started getting into like raves and everything, and then that's when like the tech house came along. That's when I met you. But it's all just like, because when you learn different genres of music, you start to build up a lot of different like techniques. Like I find that there's a lot more sort of, I mean, obviously it's different for everyone, but I find, from my experience, there was producing tech house, there was a lot more to it than what I was doing when I was producing like trap beats. Like, in terms of like different like technical mixing, trying to get different frequencies to sort of work together. Although like it may sound simpler, I think actually getting those sounds and like and like at the time like never used loops or anything. So it sort of went down the hard route. Which I don't think a lot of people do. Obviously, when people getting into it straight away, they'll use loops and stuff like.
For sure.
And don't get me wrong, I think like I don't have a problem with anyone using loops. I think like if it sounds good, do it. You know, like as a producer, it's down to like your taste. Like a producer used to be someone who would just book a trumpet player, or like they know a singer to get on someone's track, or they're just making sure the album gets done.
Yeah.
So like you don't have to be a musician. If you think your music sounds better with a loop, then use one. But the only reason I'd say to not use it is because if you can learn how to make make those sounds without you have more control over your music, so you'll get a better producer.
This is really interesting, actually, to be honest, because this is something that I still struggle to this day. I still struggle to get in my tracks to sound like when you add a loop. What I find with loops is you add a certain element of fullness to especially my drums. Yeah, my drums, for some reason, when I do them, and I think maybe it's a little bit of the combination of not using enough reverb and compression and like maybe filling in the frequency range by layering. And I think by experimenting in that way, you start understanding like what do you need to make it sound fuller and how to make the track sound fuller. But I think at the beginning, and a lot of you guys, some of you guys will be starting your production journey right now. But I remember when I started my production journey, it was like, I can't use loops. I can't use loops because it's like cheating. You don't want to use loops, But I actually like sometimes if it makes it sound good, half the time, the only other people that are going to critique you for using a particular loop, if it's audible, like it's another producer.
It's exactly that. Like no one else is going to care that you used a loop or not. It's the only people who are going to care are people who have spent their lives not making loops, but they'll only be mad because at the time your beat sounds better. Because you haven't used a loop. So I just think it's down to like, obviously you'll grow more as a producer, find your own sound, etc. Like, because obviously if you are using loops, say if you go on Splice, then there's a huge chance that someone else is going to use the exact same loop as you. You can buy like a lot more sort of exclusive packs or like ones that aren't like as popular. But then, I mean, I've got this Palace loop pack. I think Tion Wayne released a song like a few months ago, and like one of the loops was on there. And it's like all the producer's done is just added a simple drum pattern with a bass, and he's probably been paid like 15, 20 grand for it. Like,
man, it's insane. It's insane. I've heard really good tracks that have performed really well in in Beatport and so on and so forth. Like full on like bassline, like the bassline loop just used in the track. And like, to be fair, because I didn't know the loop, I just thought to myself like, what a great bassline. And then you hear the loop. But I think you have to get the balance right between like, I do 100% think you should try and be as unique as you possibly can and put your own spin on things once you've got to the point where you've learned how to do things. But with that being said, like I've said, like 80% of the dance floor that is not DJ or producer, even if you're just a DJ and you're not a producer, the likelihood of someone like picking up on it is not that high, really. So if it helps, maybe try and adapt it in some way to your beat, I think. And don't be afraid to use them. I think especially within the drums realm, I think like things like melodies and bass lines, like those are more instantly recognizable than the drums. I think the drums, you stick a filter on it, some phaser, some whatever, you change it a little bit more, it becomes more of a harder thing. But I think the question that I had for you in terms of the production side, because obviously we're kind of diving into that, is what do you do to make your loop sound, as full or maybe as rounded as some of the loops that, come in packs, for example?
Well, I mean, like I say, if, there's been times when like, let's say if I'm just having fun in the studio, I just want to like play piano or something, or just like experiment with different synths, and I'll throw like just a drum loop on this here and there. If you listen to it, you can hear where the space is filled out. So you can hear and sort of use that as like a reference to your own tracks. But if you're talking like more technical terms, it is just making I think.
When you say when the space is filled out, just to be fair, I don't even know what you mean, but just to kind of like dive into that, what do you mean specifically by when?
So like when I realised a lot of my drums, like from my like earlier productions, it sounded like it was all very in the middle. Whereas when I listen to like these loops and stuff, there's a lot more. It's like more spaced out. So like you can hear that actually like the hi-hat where I've got it almost like dead center, actually the hi-hats are like sort of more like one's slightly on the right, and then you've got a snare which is in the middle, but then you've got other sounds that are just coming in. And it's like something like when you make a drum beat on its own and you start to space it, it sounds a little bit weird, but it's not until it's in context with everything else.
Yeah.
But I think like to get it more sort of like a punchy sound, really it's bring everything, like bring the other sounds down. So like if you've, for me, I like to think the drum sort of carries the track.
Yeah, it's,
so
it's the groove, like.
Yeah, it's like I think it determines like more so sort of what like genre or what I don't even know how to explain it, like what sort of style it is. Like if you've got like, you could have the same melody, but I think if you have like a really like fast drum pattern, or if you half timed it, it's just completely different. Or, so I think the drum sort of like is the foundation or like the body of the track. Because I know a lot of people start off with like making melodies and then put drums around it. I always start off drums first and then put the melodies around it.
Do you think there's something, because that's a very interesting point that you make. Do you think there's something to the creative direction being dictated by what you start with? And what I mean by that, just to kind of expand on it, is I've watched a few videos and podcasts of people talking about the fact that, you know, when you start with the drums, obviously like you're starting with the groove, right? And people kind of say like once you start with the groove, you can, like I, for example, hear the bass line. I'm sure yourself too. But do you think it's possible to start the other way around and just lay down a bass line and maybe try and fit your drums around that? And do you think that affects the creative direction of where you take the beat?
I mean, I think it will affect the creative direction, like completely. I think any like small detail will always like affect the creative direction. Yeah. Like if you started off with a bass line, or if you started off with drums, your different ideas would come. But you like there's no like right or wrong way to make music. Like I think if you were to start off with a bass line, then you're probably going to build everything around that. So like the main element of the track would probably be this huge bass, which. Yeah, I mean, if you like it, then I'm trying to think of an example, but like...
Do you ever do it that way around? Do you ever start with the bass and then go back to the drums? Or do you ever start with the melody and then go into the drums just for like diversity? Or are you kind of like, it works for you like drums and then everything else?
From scratch, I almost always start with drums. Okay. Just because like I might have an idea for a melody in my head and then I'll sort of, I'll just quickly add a simple drum pattern, like whether it's like doing like 140, like... sort of normal trap beat, or if I want something that's just like slow, I'll always build it around the drums. But from there, I might be trying to like record a bass line for it.
Yeah,
it doesn't fit with the track, or like the sound doesn't fit with the track, but I think I actually like that bass line. So I'll start a new project and then start with that bass.
Gotcha.
And then build it around. So like that's where I'll start off with different elements, different instruments where it doesn't work for what I'm doing on, but I like what I've made anyway, so I'll put it into something new. So you didn't start on anything.
Do you save basically like the MIDI to whatever bass line you've put in, you save the kind of preset and the MIDI and stuff, and then use it in a next project?
Yeah, I mean, I'll save the preset. Yeah. Most of the time anyway, or just try and remember what I did to get that sound.
Yeah.
But I never save the MIDI or anything. I usually just start everything like from scratch, like completely as possible.
I mean, you can drag it. I think, to be fair, like one of the things that I've changed recently, and although to be fair, you know, I need to get back on the production properly, but one of the things that I've changed recently that I haven't done previously, and I don't know why I haven't done this, you know, I'm ashamed to say that I'm in so far with the production journey, but I've never, like, I've saved some of the presets, but in terms of like my collection, I've never spent time just going through like the samples that I like, creating my own drum racks, and then just putting the sample in the drum rack so I can use them in future projects to maintain a similar sort of sound, you know what I mean? Or like spending the time to find presets within, you know, whether it's Arturia or whatever it might be, and then save them for the next project. I'd start from the beginning, every single project, trying to find new things, and it's such a fucking waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like, I'm a lot further on my production journey than you.
Yeah, for sure. I've
never made a template in my life. Like, I'm the same thing.
Really?
Like, I start everything from scratch.
Fair.
And like,
fair.
Which I probably should start, but what obviously, like you said, it may be it may seem like a waste of time.
Yeah.
But I think if I was to then sort of base everything off a certain template, then that's like
I've already limited
it.
Yeah.
I think I've already limited it. So like the more like less you start with, the more sort of it opens up different directions you can take the production in.
I 100% get where you're coming from with that, because I think I can't remember what other video I was watching, but there was basically saying like once you've got like, let's say for example you've set up like 3 synths and you keep going in that direction like over and over again. I think there's something to be said about, like, obviously you're much further in the production journey than I am. I think at the stage that I am, I think there's something to be said about the fact that once you figure out you know, like a track, let's say, for example, you feel like a track is missing something and you figure out that it's got like 3 synths instead of like 1. Yeah. And you're like, oh, I don't know why there's not enough diversity in my track. Well, guess what? You're not using enough elements, right?
Yeah.
So I think once you kind of get to grips with that, then I think it might be a useful stepping stone in that process. But I think like once you get to your level where you can, you know, you know what you're doing, you're very comfortable producing, you know, different types of music, different genres. I think it's more easier to not limit that creativity.
Yeah. I mean, for me, every time like I'm in the studio making a track, it's like it's just an experiment. It's like it's fun. Like I'll hear a track, I think I like that, and I want to make my sort of own version of it. Just spark an idea, and then just jump in the studio. I never like just sit down and think, right, I'm going to make this, that, and the other today. It's like almost you just feel like you hear something or see something, it just sparks like a creative wave.
Yeah. Has that been your process from the beginning? And the reason I'm asking that is because I know, and you know, from speaking to my friends as well, like sometimes in between having a day job and working a day job and having limited time to be able to sit down and do production and so on and so forth, sometimes it can be a little bit pressure of like, I just gotta make a banger. Like it's gotta fucking happen. And the mentality of like forcing it to try and make something versus, I think I saw Rick Rubin talk about this, and he was basically saying you've got to let it like come through you and be fun and enjoyable and experiment. So like, was that a bit of a journey for you, or did you just start out with the experiment?
No, it was definitely a journey for me. Like, so you go through the process where you make, obviously when you first get into it, you'll make terrible music and you hate it and it's frustrating. It's so frustrating.
But you're still proud of it.
But then you show people and then you instantly turn it off because you're like, nah, like it sounds good to you because you listen to it over and over again it's your work. But then you show someone else and they're like, or especially someone who doesn't understand production, and they're just like, doesn't sound the same to them. But
it doesn't sound like what's on radio, basically.
But 100%, like I went through stages of like, obviously there's been so many times I'm just like forcing myself to try and make like trap beats to like try and sell, and just hating it. Or like, almost like just sort of like I'm almost getting sick of it, trying to, and I can't come up with an idea. Writer's block all the time. Same thing even happened like when we were doing the gelato, and it's like we have to make tech house. I couldn't really have time to dive into other genres
and explore stuff.
And it's like, right, like it was a chore. Like by the end of it, it was a chore. Obviously, I learned a lot from it. And it wasn't until when COVID first hit, obviously that we couldn't do the event for a while. Furloughed from my job, is like for the first time I actually had time to myself. Yeah. So I can actually start to sit down and enjoy making the productions. But I think you have to go through all these different processes, like everyone's the same. Like I hear everyone's production journey, like where they start to give up is a lot of when they feel like more burnt out. It's been like the 3rd or 4th time they've burnt out, and it's like it's just not worth it anymore. But I think
that was literally me. I think probably nearly a few months ago. I think we spoke about this. I nearly called it on its head.
And like I said, I've called it on its head many times, but then just something about it. I've just gone back to it. Like maybe it's like a tune I've heard. Maybe like someone like I've shown someone a beat I made a year ago and thought, oh, that's actually sick. Like, and I thought, okay, all of a sudden it's like a little spark. It's like spark inside me. It's like ready to do it again. But it wasn't until like honestly, it was only about maybe 6 months ago when I started to make. Obviously, going through these processes, I've gained all the technical ability. So it means like I can now sort of I subconsciously make music. Like I don't have to think about it. I don't have to work out, how do I do this? How do I do that? You start to learn and start to get comfortable. So if I wanted to get a certain sound, I kind of like I'll achieve making it.
You know what quickly. You're going in for,
Like even if I started to make a new genre, I can, because of like the experiences you gain from it. You've got and you add it all together from like making different genres, learning different mixing techniques, sound design, etc. Then like so all the technical side of it. Then when it comes to the like creativity, which I think obviously your taste is the most important thing you can have as a producer. Before I was making music for other people. So I'm making a trap beat, you think, will people like this? Then I'm making a tech house, be like, will people like this? I'm making music that I'm trying to think that other people would like. And it wasn't until I sat in the studio and only made music that I liked. That was for me. So I say, you know, and you listen to a song and it just hits. And like maybe you're going through something in your life, or like different, it could be any track, but like at that point in your life, it just hits, like it just works. And you just like, it's sort of your go-to song for a little while. That's when I started making my own music like that, which is like something that would only appeal to me, only hit to me. And then from that, like 6 months onwards, like a 3-month period where I was pretty much just locked in the studio, literally 24/7. and it was like the most creative, the most like there's like the best music I've ever made, and it's like almost like a hit, like a whole new massive level in making music.
And that was because you was enjoying basically what you...
Because I was enjoying it, because I wasn't, for the first time, it's like, it's almost quite euphoric. It's like, just, I'm not worried, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, what will people think of this? I'm just making music that I want to listen to, or like, do I like this, do I not? A lot of people won't like a lot of what I've made, but you'll get like a certain handful of people who will like love it. And that's what I've found. Like, it's not just music that, you know, would appeal to everyone. It'll be like most people probably won't get it, but the ones who do will be really into
loyal
it.
Followers, basically.
Yeah. And I think that's where you then start to like find your own sound. Like, you'd rather have a small loyal fan base than what you'd want to like be in the masses or like part of a trend for a while, because that's how you get
doing things that you don't enjoy, basically.
Yeah. That's how I think you get like longevity. And yeah, I think you just connect with your music, will connect with people. Like, maybe they're going like sort of going through a similar thing that you are. Yeah. But I still listen to a lot of like the music I made from 6 months ago. Like, I'll listen to it, it still hits the same. Yeah. And I listen to it a lot.
Sometimes like, even better.
Yeah. So, yeah. But I never listen to my old trap beats, never listen to my old tech house tunes, because I didn't make them for me. I'm listening to it just like, and it's almost like reflecting someone sitting in the studio hating it. Whereas when I make the music that I wanted to listen to, it's like, means a lot more. But you move into like a whole different level of production, and I felt like that was like everything I've been working toward. All these like getting burnt out, all these learning these horrendous like software and trying to wrap your head around it. It's so much to wrap your head around. It takes so long. Like, I've given up more times.
People think you just hit a button and you make a track.
Yeah, like it's just like put music through the music machine, but it's like such a weird like complex of science and art of where it meets. So you're like so technical, creative. Obviously, like, I think everyone who produces knows it's a painful process. You get little rewards here and there.
Yeah. But especially at the beginning, it's an absolute slog.
Yeah.
A slog.
Yeah.
And I think like the downsides for me, sorry to interrupt, I think the downsides for me, and I think many producers, maybe you guys watching, I think it's the fact that, like, you know, for example, you work like you can work a normal job, you're like a corporate job, or you do like university, for example, and like there's a reward at the end of like every 6 months, there's a reward, or at the end of like whatever, you take an exam and you're like, all right, this is where we are. Like with music, you listen back to your beats and you're like, look, there's progress, but I don't feel like there's an immediate reward. You know what I mean? Like, ultimately, the immediate reward for every producer is, I've made it, you know, I'm playing the international gigs, I'm DJing everywhere, I'm making great music, so on and so forth. But that don't come to like, you know, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, like God knows what. So it's hard to just keep the machine rolling all that fucking time to get to the point where like you get the reward out of what you're putting in.
Yeah. I mean, I always found the biggest reward was just making something that I liked.
That you loved, yeah.
Like, even though, like I said, like what I was saying about the trap beats, like there was quite a few which I made, which I'd listen to, like, I'm really proud of this, or I can't wait to show people.
Yeah.
And for me, like, making a track where I think I would actually listen to this, what did feel like a reward, it felt like that was worth doing. Like, even in my career now, if like I never made another penny from music and did everything I was doing now for free, worked another job, it would still be worth it to make music that I like. And that's obviously, there's bigger rewards in making it your living and then trying to sort of stay consistent with it. But I think, it's a sort of the reward to keep on going, or what makes it worth it for me is just making music that I like.
See, this is an interesting topic, and I don't know, like, I feel like, you know, I'm going to be broaching something that I haven't even come to terms with on this podcast that much, but there are certain people that I talk to, and I'll be completely honest, there's another guy that I've talked to that, you know, just love and embody music, but to a level that, like, you know, it's their life and they live it. And I love music, but I've always like sat and sometimes asked myself, I thought, do I want to pursue maybe something else? Because especially the way I'm hearing you, because don't get me wrong, I completely agree. You make a great track, you feel that buzz, everything's working, it's amazing, and you get the reward from it. I also think that there has to be a balance between like living your life from a financial perspective and, you know, securing yourself in that way, whilst also doing the craft that you love. But sometimes it does make me question, like, hearing people like yourself and my friend talk about it, like, do I have enough like love for it? Sometimes, you know, and I don't know if anyone else like goes through this, but I think just the reason I'm kind of putting this point across is because I was also watching Diplo, and Diplo was saying that like he loves the music, but he also knew that he wasn't going to be like the best at it or has the biggest love for it. But he was still very successful because he was extremely creative in what he did. So I think the point that I'm basically trying to put across is ultimately, I don't think it doesn't have to be like your life, your be all and end of all. Like, it's okay to have different interests as well, whilst you're sort of...
Oh, 100%. Like, music is, like, obviously one of the biggest parts of my life, but it's not, like, my entire life.
Yeah.
It's, like, if anything, like... I mean, like I said, like, there's a lot of other stuff I like doing. Like if you're saying, like, creatively, like, I love... like, do like, a bit of photography here and there.
Gotcha.
Obviously, some writing here and there. Like... like, even with doing like the gelatos things, like even everything else around the music, like just like creative design.
What made you choose music?
Do you know, it's something I always gravitated towards, and I think, to be fair, I heard Rick Rubin say why
his podcasts are great, aren't they?
Brilliant,
just amazing.
Yeah, so anyone who wants to get into production or to understand it on a like sort of philosophical level.
It's beyond the realm of like technicality. It's like
if anything, watching, like, 'cause I had a lot of the same thoughts as obviously I'm not saying everything, but like there's a few big points. Like I said, making music you like was a big one. Yes. I felt like that, and then when he said it, it was like okay. Like, I felt like a bit of reinsurance. Yeah. And a lot of what he was saying in there, especially like stuff how he's like, he says like he's not good technically. Yeah. He doesn't play instruments. He doesn't, which is obviously like he's being humble about himself. But what he's saying is like the only thing he has is taste. He just knows what he likes and what he doesn't, and that's why he's been such a successful producer. Yeah.
Just. Yeah. I don't know how recently you've watched this, but I think I've discovered him. I think 2-3 months ago, and I was watching some of the podcasts of. You can tell the guy's a very spiritual being, 100%. So. It's interesting to see him talk about the aspects that are not relevant to the actual technical side of making music. He talks about everything else outside of it, which is what we've talked about in terms of like when you sit down, don't sit down to try and make a banger, and don't let it become work. Yeah. Let it become something fun and exploratory. And the big one that you've just mentioned as well, that I'm 100% in agreement with as well, is do music for yourself that you enjoy, and let the community come and find you afterwards. But I think it's really important to like touch upon that though, because I've spent time thinking like, what if I make something that is so different from like what's already out there now? Then you think to yourself, like, what's the label going to take it like? If I go and pitch my song to the label, let's say, for example, within the minimal tech sort of tech house realm, and then you have something that's a little bit, I don't know, more brighter. I was working on a tune that's kind of like a break BT type tech house, a little bit of combination of everything, not something that I've heard before. And then you start asking yourself questions, well, what if they won't sign me? But on the other side of things is, if you don't have a table to eat at, you make your own table. Yeah. Like, it's a bit more work, and, you know, from a promotion perspective, I guess, trying to get it to your audience can be more difficult. But I think you build those marketing channels to be able to deliver your music to your audience. And I think ultimately, like, if you think about, and, you know, these are just ideas that are forming, so if I go off on a tangent, pull me back. But I think if you look at, like, musical cultural changes, they've all come from some sort of different sound that someone's made, you know, like Timbaland in his time, Kanye West after, and you have to have the courage to be able to make whatever is being spoken to you, whatever's being sent and delivered to you as a message, and be able to basically put it out in the world, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, to get signed from a label these days, if you can just build up a small following independently, a label will sign you. Doesn't matter what music you like. If you have like, especially if you've got a following on TikTok, Instagram, labels will just sign you for, like, when it comes to, like, if you're an A&R and you found this really underground unknown artist who's really good, makes different type of music, and you're trying to look at from like even your own sort of judging your own taste as A&R, if they're good, a label, the first thing they'll ask is, what is a social media following? If it's nothing, they won't even look twice. They've got to build up your own independence. But this is where a lot of music, because obviously their labels are corporate companies. They make money.
It's a business.
It's a business. Obviously, there's a lot of people like who work in labels who are genuine for the music, but at the end of the day, the person who controls it's where the money goes. It's not.
We're in a label if you ain't making music, you know what I mean? If you ain't making money, sorry, like, ultimately. But
this is like when you were talking about, because obviously people can build up it's easy to build up a following now as an independent artist. What would have been like, saying like the 60s or 70s. Yeah. You couldn't build up, and you had to have like label backing. But the difference is now with labels, the there's a lot of the label people who run them. A lot of them are very pretentious. They won't they won't take a risk on what to release. Like you said, like if you come with this new sound, if you didn't have a following to sort of prove that it will do well, then they won't look at it twice. But when you get the old label runners, so like these fat guys in suits with like monocles, like chuffing a cigar all day, like something you wouldn't expect them. They won't understand like young music like that. This is where like punk rock started, and from like those guys, like the last people you'd expect for it. But what they said was, let's just put it out there, see how it does. If it does well, we'll do it again.
A/B test it, basically.
Yeah, it's like they're like a little bit more. Well, they just weren't afraid to say they don't know what's good. So let's just put it out and see what happens. But now a lot of labels get very pretentious over the sound, like sort of, this people won't like this people. The truth is, you don't know.
Let me take it back a little step, if that's okay with you. You mentioned something that's quite interesting to me, because I've been thinking about it as well. But like, it is business ultimately at the end of the day, and I think like, you know, even for nights that book you, whether locally or, you know, nationally and so on and so forth, ultimately what do they look at is, do you make really good music? Yes or no? That's obviously part of it. And ultimately, what's your following? What does that translate into? It translates into how many tickets can you bring me? Like that's really what we're talking about, right? Do you sort of know like what, you know, because I know obviously Spotify plays is one of them. I know you're following on Instagram and TikTok is one of them. I guess the two-part question that I'm asking is, what kind of constitutes the things that a label might look at to judge whether they would want to maybe sign your tracks or a night booking you as a DJ? And off the back of that, do you know like a rough sort of numbers? You know, how many followers do they look at? What's considered good? Is it over 5,000? Is it over 10,000? Like, what does that mean?
Well, with the so let's say so the first question, obviously, what do they look at? Is what is obviously your following. So like, and sort of to answer the first and last question, the following would be, a lot of it is engagement. So how much do your fans engage? Like, do you just get a lot of views of people who just listen to your track once? They just watch, like, you know, they just get one like,
they'll never buy
and then never again. Or do you have like, so do you have 50,000 people who just look at it once and never look again? Or do you have 5,000 people that follow everything you do? So it's a lot of it is to do like with engagement, and just basically like, I mean, I suppose I can't really give you a number of what people like. I'm sure anything past 10,000
is a good standing point.
Depending on where, like, how long your account's been going. I think also the acceleration of how well. Let's say if you've spent 10 years building up 50,000 followers, wouldn't be as good as someone who's like just started making music and has built up 20,000 followers. Like, they'll look into that a lot more. And the other thing that labels will really look at is story. What is your story as an artist? What other interesting things are there about you? Like, what is your sort of like, what do they market? What do they know? It's almost like, if you wanted to become an artist,
like, who are you?
Yeah, it's like, right, what is your biopic? What's your documentary? So let's just make one straight away. I think South Park did an episode of this where I can't remember, like, they started a band and the label hired them just to make the documentary. Didn't even release music or something. It's something along those lines. But it's true how but though that's selling the story and everything, that's what sort of reels people in. People love, like, you know, that's why a lot of people love see, like, rappers who come up like the hard way. Like, there's a real, like, sort of rags to riches story, which everyone loves that sort of story, and why everyone hates it when they find out that certain artists come from like well-off backgrounds and like don't really have the sort of like Slipknot,
which tends to be, you know, a high number of cases within the industry. Like more than you'd feel. You'd be very surprised. Like I was about to say, Slipknot. They come from, like, a lot of them come from very rich families. I'll be honest with you. Like, from my experience and what I've known, it was a veil that, you know, got lifted from my eyes. Without seeing the background, you would think that people have made it in because of, you know, maybe their own, but there's little things like, you know, wealth in the family, having the ability to have a house and not worry about paying rent. Even for myself, to be honest, I'm quite entitled in some senses. You know, my parents have helped me, my laptop before the laptop that I have now, my parents have helped me buy that laptop because, you know, high performing laptop, you need it for production, so on and so forth. Like, those little things are things that are given as a taken, you know what I mean? Like, I come from Romania, you know, where, like, flipping, we used to get bananas once every 3 months and McDonald's for Christmas or for your birthday or whatever, you know what I mean? So I can see the sense of entitlement in that sense. And it's really relevant in the industry as well from what I've seen. But anyway, that's a different story. I'll bring it back to the other side of what we're saying. In terms of the story itself of how, what's your opinion in terms of how do you think is best to share that story, right? I mean, obviously from a Eminem perspective, you make a documentary later down the line and so on and so forth. But in this day and age, what do you think are the tools to be able to tell your story? And what do you think people should do maybe to try and build that story over time and ultimately connect with their audience, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I suppose like there's no like single way to do it. Obviously, the more relatable you are, then I think more people will listen to you. But I don't think there's like any sort of tools to do. I mean, I suppose like your music will reflect what the story is. Maybe write about what each song means. Maybe how it was made. Maybe there's an interesting story behind it.
Yeah.
And I think that just resonates with people.
Yeah.
But I can't really think like what sort of tools.
So I mean, the reason I'm asking you that question is because like what I've noticed as of recent, and actually to be fair, a big reason as to why we're sat here doing this podcast is I've noticed a lot of the DJing scene moving more into wanting to share the story beyond just making music, beyond just being the artist that has made a song. And then obviously you can have a story behind like why you've made the song and so on and so forth. But I think this day and age, people are looking for a connection to the artist beyond the music. Like, who are you as a person? Like, why do I connect with you in a way? Like, why do I follow you beyond just the music? You know what I mean? And I think personally for me, like, I'm no expert, by the way. Like, I've just sat down and had a couple of thoughts about this. But I think just doing little videos talking about different topics of like what you find interesting to you. You know, I spend a lot of time, and even now I've done like little shorts on my Instagram where it's just like life things that I think about.
Yeah.
And it took me ages to do it because I kind of thought like, shut up, you moron. No one's going to want to listen to that sort of thing. But it's who I am, you know, ultimately. And in some sense, that becomes your brand. It becomes like who you are.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, look, is that numpty posting like the truth is like videos on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. And I've had people reach out to me and it's like, oh yeah, I saw that video. Like, it's really good. So that was a way of like building it. So I'd probably say like for you guys that are listening, just have a think about how can I as an individual differentiate myself just beyond music. I think like music nowadays is the main thing that you need to be good at. But I think to really cut through all the noise, there just needs to be something else. Yeah. Like something else above and beyond just the music.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of, like, let's say, like, take a lot of modern day rappers in America. Like, labels almost wouldn't sign you unless you were a gangster, unless you've got criminal records.
Some sort of...
Because there's a story behind it. And people, like, if you're like, obviously, if you're making rap music, trap music, then... if you come from a humble beginning, people aren't going to listen to you. It's like, listen, this is someone like in drill music in the UK. If you actually like grew up in a private school, you know, in Kent, you know, people just aren't going to like follow. Like, your music may even be really good, but it's just not a true story. So like when you get the ones who like,
you can't be rapping about shooting and killing.
Like,
well, you can, but like it doesn't have the same weight.
Yeah, like a rapper who like maybe someone who. Maybe someone who's had a humble beginning who's making rap music. Yeah, they could be doing that for 10 years. Would be less likely to be signed by a label than someone who's just come out doing a 10-year stretch in prison. Yeah, because like, they've got a story behind it. There's like, and yeah, I think like obviously
that's a lot louder than I thought it was going to be.
Obviously, I wouldn't recommend going to prison to sell your rap music. Each genre is going to be different, but a lot of like what people, especially kids,
broke my story.
Especially like kids, like they eat into the whole like gangster, sort of like more like in like America, like NBA YoungBoy's got like,
especially here as well, though. You know, I've noticed that in Birmingham is like so much more in your face. You know, whilst I was at uni because it was in the middle of town. But obviously, that's a different.
Yeah, but like you look at other like the YNW Melly. Yeah, like obviously his whole like confessing to a murder on a track and then getting arrested for it, and that's like his biggest tunes. Yeah, like that kid's name.
Didn't even know that, to be fair.
Yeah, didn't know that. Listen, it's crazy. Like what they do. I listen to a lot of it because obviously that's sort of the music, like more genres that I sell in. There's this rapper Take who like committed a murder or allegedly, and then was on the run from the police. Was on the run from the police, and then released a song about being on the run, and there was like this huge track, and then obviously he's been sentenced to like 47 years or something, but it's like the stories behind it is people, it's not even that the track is like, if you just release a track on its own, people probably wouldn't give it a second look, apart from the wild story that comes with it. He's just committed a murder. He's now on the run from the police and has just released this tune about being on the run from the police.
Nuts.
And it's like the story behind it, like the Melly track I was just saying, it's got like over 1 billion views on YouTube. I don't think any of his tracks come anywhere near as close, but the story attached to it is he's confessed to a murder, which he's now looking at capital punishment. So it's like it's the stories around it. Obviously, they're quite extreme examples. But
the principle is there. Like, how do you take it?
But that's the reason why 1 billion people have watched the music and why people now love him and resonate with him, even as the only big tune he's ever done.
Yeah,
because of the story behind it. So that's how like the difference. Because you can like you can have like mediocre music, but if it's got a really good story behind it, then that makes a huge difference.
It's okay with you. I wanted to take it back to when you guys were doing Gelato.
Yeah.
Again, massive party, fucking great times. But what really struck me about Gelato, which is kind of where we'd met initially, I was quite fresh to the scene at that point, is you guys basically took Birmingham by storm.
Yeah.
Like, by storm, by any means of that word.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, what do you accredit that success to? Because it's a very short period of time where you kind of went from a really small part to throw like 1,000 people raves, which is, you know.
that was our first one. Like our very first party we done was like, we didn't do any before then. We spent a year trying to get a booking at a venue, no one would take us, and then managed to get one in Birmingham, secured a date. We did one small one before, like a live stream party, just to sort of like, try and get content, and then but the first actual rave we did was huge, and it was an 18-hour day and night rave, and it was just sold out, packed. It was crazy, and I think it's because I think at the time we were very unique with it. Like a lot of our promotion techniques, like we just threw a lot of personality into it. Like it wasn't just a sort of a name with a poster on it. Like we would always put our faces on the stories, talking to the camera. We were basically making TikToks before TikTok was around.
Gotcha.
And a lot, just connecting with a lot of people. Like we'd obviously, everything on our Gelato page wasn't just about the event or race. We do a lot of different things like, like showing people new music, like underground artists, and then
promoting them via the Gelato page.
Yeah, just stuff that's just enjoyable content. So even someone who's never going to come to the rave or like is into dance music would follow us because it's just enjoyable content, and it just gets a lot of more people in. And obviously putting our faces to it. Like I don't see any other event like before or after who does that, where like the actual owners or people who run it are talking to the camera and just actually putting a face to the brand.
To be fair, I think I think today in this day and age, I think it's moving more in that direction. But I think 100% during the time when you guys are doing it, I can't recall of, and locally at least, I can't recall of anyone else having done that. To be fair,
yeah. I mean, even like because we looked at what other events were doing, and like when they're sort of captions to the Instagram post would just be a couple sentences.
It's gonna be banging, mate.
Yeah, just like but when we done it, we did like paragraphs of like just really well written. We put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
Obviously, like loads of different emoji, like made it look really stand out.
Yeah.
And then from then, we noticed a lot of people, and even to this day, big events now write in that same style we were writing in.
Yeah.
Like we had like Boiler Room requested on our Facebook page to like to look at how we do it and look at our insights and stuff.
No way, really?
Yeah, they actually like, which was mad. Like at the time, you don't really think much of it. But look back, if we got a Boiler Room, like
asking you like how you doing it.
Yeah, like how do you get this sort of like engagement content? They were like to see like what we do.
Insane that is, to be fair. I didn't know that.
I didn't even know you could do that until we had like this like request thing where it's like Boiler Room requesting to view like the what settings and stuff you have it on, and on the Facebook Business Manager. No way. Yeah, and it's just because we did so well, but I think a lot of it was just down to putting personality into it, and we were genuine. Yeah, like we were like we wanted to. It didn't just feel like we're trying to take your money. It's like it was a passion project. Yeah, we did it because we loved it. We did it. We started the event. Initially, obviously, we all got into like tech house music, and obviously we started producing tech house. Yeah, and then thought, we want to play our tunes to people. We'll DJ. And then, so I was producing for years before I even started DJing. And then couldn't get any gigs. Like, obviously no one's going to book like someone who's never played before, or like, I feel like one or two of us played into like a completely empty room. Yeah. So we thought, you know what, let's just put on our own wave. Then we can
build your own table.
Yeah, we can do it like a big slot, and it was supposed to be like just like a small sort of fun event idea, just
people.
just so we can like DJ. And then obviously from then we found the problem of no venue would take us because we've never hosted an event before, and just kept trying for like a year until obviously then we managed to get one in Birmingham, and then just promoted the hell out of it for 3-4 months. Like that was my first ever gig that I played, and it's.
How did you guys? Because I'll be honest with you, like up to this day, like I've only seen one other night really in the space of time that you guys sort of did your parties that didn't really come close, but like still did relatively well. Like, what was the marketing plan behind it? Like, what happened? And by the way, I think a big part of it, and I still think to this day, is because yourself and Harry and all the lads were like, Sam, were just great people, and you all you can just tell are really nice people, great personalities, and obviously I can see why that engagement would work. But what was there anything else in the background in terms of your marketing plan of like how you thought about doing things, or did you have like a marketing plan in advance, like scheduled in like 3 months in advance, like we post this many times, we do this many things, or was it just on the go? Like,
I'll be honest, it was just complete chaos. it was messy as hell. It was like almost like, it's surprising how well it done, because it is by far the worst business we have ever ran. We were like, I mean, do you think we were young? Like I was 19 when we done the event. Like we were just young, stupid. Like we never run an event before. We're just doing what we think is right, and a lot of the times we were right, but there was like pretty much every lesson I've learned in business, like, you know, you learn from your failures.
100%.
I learned everything from Gelato. Like just 100%. From there is like what I've based my entire like rest of my business decisions off. But we didn't have like any sort of marketing plan. Like we had like an idea of like, okay, in 3 months, maybe like certain small things. Like, okay, what we're going to do is do a countdown 10 days before. So we release 10 days to go. Yeah. We're going to really like you'll get artist cards, and we'll just put loads of prep. But we never really had a plan. It's sort of like take it as you go, because obviously you've got to keep it with Instagram. You have to switch up a lot of what you do, like a lot of content you do. If you just do like sort of post the same exact thing, eventually your engagement goes down. So like we might do one post like which is like a press videos of the DJs playing. The next day is a competition announcement, which is sort of literally just making it up as we went. Yeah. Had like a rough idea, but nothing was like sat down and planned or articulated.
Yeah, you don't get around the boardroom and like, guys, this is what we're doing. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we'd have like meetings every now and then and just sort of like decide, just spitball ideas and then go from there. But it was just complete chaos.
So how did the first one come about then? Like, because did you guys know each other? You knew each other prior to Gelato, I'm assuming.
We knew. So me, Harry, and Liam went to college together.
Gotcha.
That's where we met.
Okay.
And then we all decided to go to the same uni.
Gotcha.
Then we all lived in Bristol together, and then moved to Birmingham to run the event. Which is when Sam, who he didn't go to college with us, but he was Liam's friend while Liam was at college. So we got to know Sam back then. Gotcha. And then from there, I think we're right. So from Bristol, Liam and Harry, we'd actually ran an event in college once. I was only 16 when we did it. Ended up doing security on the door for the first hour, IDing people, telling bar staff what to do. I'm 16 years old, like searching people. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like this is like.
Yeah,
so
you can go.
Yeah, but the owner never asked my age, because not many underage people like
would do it.
We'd have like organise a meeting about running a club night. You just wouldn't think about thinking, oh, are you 18? Like, you just wouldn't think like, of course you are. Like, but we got away with that. But
that's nuts. That is.
And one of the DJs we booked for those nights, Albsy, who he's really big now, done really well. He's gone like over to American stuff. He's like released like good tunes. He does like sort of bass line.
The Gelato touch.
Yeah, but he's doing really well. And when we were in Bristol, he invited us to go to his show in Birmingham. Yeah, I didn't go to it. I can't remember why. Probably work or something. But Liam and Harry went. Yeah, and then from there, that's when they met Nico. Yeah, and then had a drunken conversation about, oh yeah, we're trying to start an event, and he was in the same boat. Oh, he wants to start an event as well. And it's probably the first and only time I've ever heard of anyone making plans on a night out with a stranger you've never met before about starting a business and running it, and the next day actually going
following through.
was like, yeah.
yeah, we'll catch up. We'll go for lunch.
Yeah.
We'll go for lunch. Yeah,
like even like arranging a plan. Oh yeah, we'll go pub tomorrow. Like never happens. Any plan you make on the night before never happens.
Yeah, I agree.
But then, that went through. So we all moved to Birmingham. Yes, they ended up being, and then obviously Sam moved up at the same time or joined. Originally, I wasn't going to move to Birmingham.
Gotcha.
So I was with my girlfriend at the time, and sort of had a decision to make. Do I stay in Bristol with her or do I go to Birmingham?
Yeah.
Ended up staying. And then quite shortly after, ended up breaking up. So then when we moved, so Liam and Harry had already got...
Universe was like...
Literally. So Liam and Harry had got a 2-man house, which then Sam moved up after to... we moved up at the same time, but he'd already decided to go up there. So it's either he can sleep on one of their sofas. And then I decided after to move up. So I had to get like a transfer from work. I missed the deadline to transfer from uni and had to... my teacher just told me, oh, you need to drop out or defer, and then we'll make sure that the other uni lets you in, which I didn't tell my parents that's how it happened. I just told them it was a transfer. But yeah, so I technically had to
What defer. Did you tell your parents?
I told them it was a transfer. Because I didn't want to tell them, I've dropped out of uni. To do this sort of shady, risky, like
I'm about to start an event. I don't know if it's going to work. Because
I might defer from uni and the other uni doesn't accept me. Like that could very much happen. There's no it's very on the DL. But then I moved up there as well, and I went from the apartment I got with my girlfriend at the time was like we had 2 living rooms, a huge kitchen. It was an upstairs and downstairs, like 2 bedrooms. It was like huge. It was like this basement, like studio room. Yeah, it was crazy. In Clifton in Bristol, which if you know that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I've got a friend who lives.
Right on the triangle. So it's, it was nice, and it went from there to a council house, which has been turned into a student house.
Yeah, I bet that's a bit of a change.
Paper thin walls. You had Sam sleeping on one sofa. I was sleeping on the other sofa.
Yeah.
That's like there's.
What was like that for you? Was that quite a big adjustment to take? Because I think some people don't understand, like, sometimes them type of sacrifices need to be made. Like, you need to be able to humble yourself.
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, it was traumatizing.
It was hard.
It was like a lot of like, for me, it was such a weird experience because obviously like, it's going for because obviously that was like my first girlfriend. Your first heartbreak's always the worst.
Yeah.
And obviously like...
Trust me. So tell me about it.
Yeah, like I say to people, I didn't move to Birmingham, like I crash landed there. Like literally, I remember getting a National Express with 1 bag of stuff. Didn't even like forgot to even bring a duvet. Like Nico gave me one. Going on for like obviously having a huge bed to then a leather sofa, which your legs dangling off. Sam's on the other one. Don't even have like my own room. Heart is shattered, and we're now about to start this incredibly overwhelming, stressful business. Yeah. And then started blowing up. It was a really, really weird time because it was almost like the best and worst time of my life. It was like to go for it, and because it blew up straight away. It was such a sudden change. Like it was very like from one end of the stick to the other. Like abrupt, and I think. I mean, I'd obviously enjoyed it, had a really good time, but like delayed a lot of like what I should have like processed before going into it. But
in terms of like your feelings from previously, or do you mean?
Yeah, like never really had a chance to like sort of get over it.
Grieve, yeah.
Like sort of, I don't know if I say grieve, but like, you know, like,
let's process the feelings. I mean, I call it grieving, but I think...
I suppose, yeah.
It's not grieving as in the sense of like, I guess you are mourning a loss to an extent, but I think it's just processing the loss of a person that you've obviously shared a considerable amount of time with and developed a bond beyond, you know, like beyond your parents is probably, or maybe even the closest person to you at the time. So you do need that period. I agree that you just process, I guess. Like, you know what I mean?
Like you need like a few months where you just have, you could just be depressed for a little while. But like, obviously I went straight from that to, because I didn't even have like my own, because I'm sharing a living room with Sam. I don't even have like my own space. So it's like, you just sort of like hold everything and just try and like just go for it. But then obviously I've got gelato, which is like a really good distraction. So I'm throwing my, like where I'm not processing this, I'm actually throwing myself into the gelato, just sort of like really taking my mind off it. And not, to be honest, it wasn't even like, it was, I mean, it was difficult in some ways, but in other ways, because I had that to sort of like gelato to lean on, it wasn't like, it it wasn't as bad as what it could have been. But it wasn't until after Gelato ended that's been a lot of like, because it's like you can't cancel like how you feel. You can only postpone it, and I think that's like because obviously you just postponed it for so long. I mean, ideally, it would have been nice to have like maybe a couple months, get my head together, get this together, because it wasn't just that. There was so much other stuff that came with it. Obviously, like with, I was paying like 550 for an apartment whilst living on a council house sofa. Obviously, putting whatever money we had into this event. Just started a new like sales job working at now in a new university.
Everything's a lot of change.
Change has happened like instantly. Yeah. Like although I'm with like luckily I was with like Liam, Harry, Sam. Like
there was some familiarity around.
Yeah, I think with like if I wasn't with them, it would have been because then you got the added thing of having no friends. Luckily, I was with like friends I've been friends with for years already. So like yeah, so there's a benefit, and then obviously. But then going through all this sort of like different things and then being put in a spotlight with Gelato. And then it's like, it was just like so many abrupt changes. And I think obviously trying to adapt to all of it was just quite a lot to take on. And it's almost like, I don't even know how to explain. It's so complicated and it was quite so long ago, but it's like,
I honestly like, you're preaching to the choir for me because like, sort of in my past, I sort of made that transition too. And unfortunately, I lost, friendship group with it. I've lost, my relationship at the time and so on and so forth. And I think the difficult side of it is, especially if there's not enough familiarity of like the new stage of life that you're walking into, it just kind of feels like this world that you knew just completely shatters and you're moving into something that like, it's unknown. You don't know like what's coming up. So it's kind of scary. And at the same time, I'm just thinking from your perspective, going from like, morning to, I remember I was trying to DJ at one point, like whilst I was going through this process. And mate, the last thing I wanted to do was mix, bro. Yeah. The last thing in the world. I was like clanging. I was like, just not like, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't into the music. I was just fucking like, you know what I mean? Like just going through the motion. So like, I can't even imagine what it'd be like for you guys going from like, mourning a breakup to running 1,000 people party and having to like, obviously be on Instagram and, put your face out there and connect with people. Like it must have been very, very difficult for you.
I mean, it was difficult for all of us because obviously we were so young. And it was like the business was way too big for us to handle. Yeah. Like in the end, obviously, it was just getting bigger and bigger. Yeah. And it's like more and more pressure. We're up against like huge events that were already established, and like, and like, it's almost funny. Like obviously, a lot of people love, like I said, when we talk to the camera and like, oh hey guys, talking about the event and stuff. But like, it's almost funny if you could see it like how it really was, like sitting there, just like. Stressed, tired, just got no motivation, and you just really can't be asked to do it. And they're like, hi guys, the event's on this week, coming down, and then just like sit, post, and just straight back down to like misery. But like, it was difficult for all of us, and it was just overwhelming stress, and like the whole. So obviously, events, like people don't really buy tickets to those sort of events until like the day before on the days, and you're like stressing the whole time.
Because you just don't know.
You just don't know. And it's every single time you're there, you absolutely hating it. You think, I'm never doing this again. Like, it's just so, like, you've got huge, like, you're going to embarrass yourself in front of your favourite DJs. Everyone's going to be laughing at you. Yeah. Oh, you've like, this time you've ruined it. Now you're going to be in debt, like, for the next 5 years trying to pay off this event that you've done. You've got no way of making your money back. Everything you've ever dreamed for is now on the line, and you're about to lose it all until on the day, and everyone buys tickets and it goes well, and you're there at the night. It's been successful, and you think, I'm never going to stop doing this. and it starts again. It's like you have like one day of like all like that stress and misery. You have one day of just like everything that makes it worth it, and it's straight back to it. But like. When you have a good event, it's successful.
For sure.
How good it feels.
Yeah, for sure.
How good it feels.
I think for me, it's quite difficult because I think, I remember when I was like kind of organizing the event, I thought to myself, if I'm completely honest, I would, moving forward, at some point, I'll probably be coming back with Midnight Grooving. But I think at this particular point in time, production is the main sort of aim for me. However, I love the strategy side. I love being involved. I love the operational aspect. But if I'm completely honest, if I had to choose between allowing myself to be the artist and do production and focus on the music, maybe being the face of the brand, I don't mind, and having someone actually running the operations of the business, I would rather have someone else running the operations of the business and allowing me to actually focus on the music, right?
Yeah.
Like long term. Because it is a lot of effort.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stress. And I think, I don't know about you, but I think when you're under that much pressure and that much stress, I think production is really not that easy, because you're thinking about like, I need to do this, I need to post that. Oh, but what about this? Can I do this video to differentiate ourselves like from all the other brands and so on and so forth? So that was a bit of a interesting journey for me. So, but the question that I do have for you is like, when you guys operated, obviously there was five of you guys.
Five of us.
Five of you. So how did you operate from a responsibility perspective? Like, did you have some sort of breakdown of this is what individually you guys are responsible? Did someone do the graphic design? Did someone,
So like Harry did a lot. Harry did most of the graphic design.
Gotcha.
Obviously Nico was more the financial side, but we all, like me, Harry and Nico would put in, with like the promotion stuff. We all help out with promotions. It wasn't like we sat down and had like certain jobs. I think it just sort
you didn't
of
have like a
I think other than because Harry was the only one who could actually do graphic designs. He
Gotcha.
like I think he'd made a little bit of money off it before. He knew how to use the software. Essentially, we didn't do it.
And he did a good job at that, to be fair. As well.
He did.
He did do a very good job at it. Yeah.
And I think we didn't have like, obviously it sort of like would naturally lead into, we end up doing roles that we're good at. But we'd all just, it wasn't planned on what we do.
Yeah,
maybe more, because obviously the biggest part of it is like the promotional side of it.
For sure.
So like, obviously business decisions, like we all make those decisions together.
Yeah.
But when it comes to promotion side, it might just be like, okay, we like split it into days. So like one day I'd be responsible for posting up every story, every post. And then the next day it's someone else.
But see, even that in itself, I feel like that is a great division of labor to an extent, right? Because
Yeah.
you have a responsibility of like, it's your responsibility here. Because the reason I'm asking you this question, by the way, is because like having done Midnight Grooving, and I agree with you completely. I've learned more about running Midnight Grooving than I've learned in my whole time, like working in sales pretty much. Although there's a lot of crossover, right? But
Yeah.
I think what I saw was, and I stick to this idea now moving forward, to be honest, I think like it really helps when everyone has different responsibilities and potentially, if it's possible, different skill sets within the team.
Yeah.
Because you have someone who does graphic design, you have someone who maybe, let's say you have a videographer or whatever. And I think if you want to really build long-term and become international, this is just my take, and it'd be interesting to hear what you think.
Yeah.
I think then, yes, you need to have a group of individuals who understand what the mission and the goal is, and like musically speaking, you all produce a similar sort of sound, so you can come out as as a label or whatever it might be to move forward. What's your sort of thoughts on that? Like now that you've done Gelato, like what's been your takeaways from it in that sense? I
mean, I think having like more, like the more organization, the better. But then also like the flexibility as well. So if you can all do, obviously maybe someone's responsible for let's say promotion or like creative design, but doesn't mean that you're tied to one operation.
Yeah.
So you could have like, you all know that like maybe whoever's involved, whoever's sort of title would be like someone who runs it, basically whoever's like in charge of the event. You all like will probably have your own sort of roles which you focus on, but you're also flexible enough that you could cover other people. So even like with the promotion stuff, like I think Liam was really good at making stories, and we all sort of learn off the back of him. But like, obviously there's be times where he's at work and I'm not, so I'm going to do the promotions.
When you can,
But I think obviously if you want to take it to a real like business, like high business level, obviously this is where I'd struggle to answer, just because of my point being how chaotic
it was previously,
how bad like we ran it badly. Like we weren't that as organised as what we could have been. If we ran it more like an actual business, then maybe it would have been different. But we had no idea what we were doing.
You were enjoying,
but when I look back and say, like, okay, now it's like a long time ago, what can I look back on and say, right, what we should have done? I think having a lot more organisation and your own roles would do it, would be better. Yeah. But you got to think at the time, because like you're putting all your money in, you don't essentially make a lot of money back You know, it's not your...
I'll come back to that as well.
You've got other jobs, you've got whatever you're doing, whatever else is going on in your life. At the time, I was working a sales job in university and running this event. They're like 3 sort of full-time jobs running at the same time. So if you're in that stage, it's harder to be that as organized. You have to be more flexible because you haven't got enough like room in the schedule. If someone's, I mean, like, because Harry was the only one who could do the graphics properly, like
he was the only one.
He was up at like he'd wake up at 5 a.m. and start doing the graphics, like, and just be tired at work all day because there wasn't anyone who could sort of help and fill out. Like if he was at work, if I'd known how to do it to his level, then, you know, he could have got a decent night's sleep, felt good that day. I could have, on my day off, could have handled the graphics, but because there wasn't that flexibility, I mean, obviously, if it's your full-time job and it's what you do 9 to 5 every day is running the event, then it's a lot easier to be organised and know where everyone's at, knowing what you need to do and what other people need to do. Even like you go as far as to have like a manager, so someone who manages the whole team, like,
or manages. For me, to be honest, the takeaway that I had from Midnight was like, I feel like having a manager specifically dedicated to thinking about how to grow the night. Yeah. Like, call it a promoter, call it a manager, call it whatever the hell you want to call it. Yeah. But I think for me is if you have someone who understands how to grow audiences, marketing would be a good sort of background to be able to do that via brand differentiation on socials and so on and so forth. I think that is an amazing add to any sort of team. You know?
Yeah, I'd add like financier as well.
For sure. So like an investor.
Not an investor, but as someone who looks at like, okay, so we're spending X amount on this. Can we get it cheaper? Can we do it a different way? Someone who's trying to find space in different costs or like come up with quite creative ways to either like make money, like maybe you're...
how do you make more money?
Yeah. Like maybe you sell electric fans in the rave because you've got the logo on it. You think, okay, these are going to be good. But maybe they're quite expensive and people aren't going to spend X amount. So maybe putting the brand on a lighter, maybe more people will buy a lighter, and maybe there's a higher profit margin on it.
How can we make money, basically?
Yeah, essentially, like how can we make money and where can we save money? So maybe we're like, you're spending too much here or there, and like, because obviously there's no one to sort of to spend enough time on it. There's an oversight on it, and you're losing money somewhere. Yeah. Maybe there's like just. But yeah, I think like the more people you have looking at more specific things, then
the better it will be.
Yeah.
So how do you tie that in? Because I think one of the things that I struggle with, to be honest with you, is like, how do you tie that in long term? Because I think what I mean by that is, especially in the beginning of like building a brand, until you're in a position where you've built the right team and you're potentially trying to, you know, make it full-time working business where people can make money out of it and they can make a living. It's hard to. I feel like it's hard to get the buy-in. You know what I mean? Like, it can be hard to find the people who understand the amount of effort that needs to be put into at the beginning to make this thing work, or may not work. Further down the line, you know what I mean, and get them to buy into that concept.
Like an investor.
Investor, but also just like, you know, for example, we've been quite lucky, I guess. You know, you knew Liam, you knew Harry, so on and so forth, and you guys built the night together, right? You had those connections already there. But for someone who's in a position who, you know, I've had some people message me on Instagram and say like, hey, like, look, I want to start a night, but I don't have the connections necessarily, you know, like, how do I go about it? You know?
I mean, I'll be honest, that's a difficult one to answer.
Tough, right?
Because obviously, like you said, from our coming up into the scene, we were already friends.
Yes.
We met in college. Yeah. We've already like a shared idea of where we wanted to go. So we actually were lucky to meet like so young. It's almost like having someone in your family who just so happens to have a connection to this and the other. I think a lot of it is luck. But I think obviously if you wanted to build connections, you need to go out there and just like talk to people, people, and just be a likable person. Be genuine as well. It won't work unless you're genuine. Yeah. But just put yourself out there.
Start putting feelers out. Be like, look, I'm looking to run a night, and then see someone might be interested.
Yeah. I mean, I'd even start off so much as just be like, rather than going straight into the business, just be someone who like they would like. So let's say with the if we were going to book a DJ, or like, we might have an idea. Okay, we want to eventually get this bigger DJ. Before contacting them, we'd spend like from even the previous event liking their stuff, sharing their stuff onto our stories, commenting like genuine comments, building up a bit of a sort of presence on their social media, like, and then you know, like our first contact isn't, we want to do business. The contact was sort of building up a rapport, a relationship.
Some sort of rapport, yeah.
And then until then you go like go in for the booking or whatever you want. Because if someone likes you, then they're more likely to work with you. For sure. Like, so you'll build up repertoires with like other like producers and stuff. Sure. To the point like showing them my own stuff, they're showing me theirs. It's like playing tracks that I've sent them
and sets and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like you're more likely to get like a business like if it comes down to them as you've got 2 bookings, they're both going to be the same. Yeah, one's with a random person who just wants to book you. The other one's with that guy who you make music with. Like obviously they're going to go for the person who they like. I think, to be fair, and actually just to add to your point, it's a great point by the way. I think just to add to your point, I think one of the things that I've really taken away from it, and it's happened by pure mistake. Like I literally can't just, like sometimes you see fire emojis and thumbs up and stuff like that. I feel like some people just do that on just about everything, right? They just spray on everything and hope for the best. I can't do that. Like unless I fuck with your music, like I can't just comment stuff just for the sake of it. And I think that actually really translates into the receiving end of the artist as well. So my sort of advice, like for most people, would be just, get involved with the artist that you actually give a shit about their music and what they're doing, whether it's their night, whether it's the music, whatever it is. Don't just like and share absolutely everything and like kind of hope for the best. You know what I mean? Like quality over quantity. I mean, like, even like what I was saying about how we do like the sort of like building up a repertoire on Instagram. It wasn't like we're just doing it or just to get this sale, just to get this business with someone. It was genuine. We did genuinely like this artist. Exactly. Yeah. It was just to get more likely to actually get a response on the booking. Was to do it this way. And like, I think the trick is just to be genuine. Like there isn't a trick. It's just you need to be genuine. For sure. Obviously, imagine like what someone. If someone's posting on your thing like fire emojis and like thumbs up, and you look on everyone else's DJ, it's the same thing. Almost like where it feels like you've got. Like I get it on SoundCloud all the time. I get so many people that they'll message me like, you read like the sort of the preface of it, and it's like, someone like, hi, I'm a huge fan of your music, and then you look on, okay, they're actually someone who's trying to sell you promotion. Stuff. And it's like, and then I receive like 10, 15 more of like the exact same thing, or like someone's commented like a really nice like comment on one of my tracks. I've gone onto their like likes and reposts, and I've seen that they've commented the exact same thing on everyone else's stuff, and it's like, okay, right, they're obviously just
for everyone. But
then so you do get a few where someone will actually DM you or message you or say they like this, and they're not like, and that's where you actually
engage.
But obviously you don't want to be you don't want to sort of compliment these artists. And then they look and say, okay, you just do this with everyone. Like you're just trying to get you're just throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks, basically.
To be fair, I think like I personally feel that from the times where I've ended up interacting with artists, I think it comes across like it's weird. As I'm typing a comment or as I'm typing a message, I used to stop myself doing it, and then I kind of got to a point where I was like fucking hell, like why am I stopping myself? Like I like their music, I love what they stand for, just fuck it, like and I comment, and I think it comes across in a way that you've actually engaged genuinely. It's not like just a fire emoji or whatever. It's whatever's come to your... I truly believe in this sort of like, energy that kind of calls to you. And some things just come. You just got to be able to recognize when it comes. Like Rick Rubin says about production. It comes. You just need to be able to get out your own way and be able to interact. And the more I've started doing not genuine comments, because there wasn't comments that were ungenuine, is the more I've allowed that to happen, the more I've started developing relationships with people by true interaction. But you won't see me like comment on 50 different artists. You know what I mean? I've got like top 4, maybe 5 that I follow like truly and closely. But so if I take it back just a step in terms of the lessons that you've learned, obviously right now you guys have done just another party that you've recently launched, right? I think Night Plan headline went pretty well. Was there anything that you took over from your experience from the previous Gelato into the one that you've done right now in terms of the lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, was to have money behind it.
You're not
like,
the big one.
So you can sort of take a bit more. You can take a bit more of a risk. It's not like everything is like, it's not make or break every event. There's a bit more of a leeway, a bit more of like a sort of longevity plan where you can do more, just more room to work. I think at the moment it is a lot more organised. The team is like obviously quite diverse. and we do have like more sort of like our own, more like set into our own roles. But it is, I'd say it is more organised now. There is more of a plan, and more of a vision. Like I said before, it just all just sort of happened like just randomly. We, like I said, all we wanted to do was play our music to people, which then snowballed into throwing a party, which then we did, and then we threw more. Like Gelato was supposed to be a one-time thing, and then just kept going. It's like almost like we don't know what's going. We don't know. We've created a monster. We don't know the stuff. But this time there is a plan, like a shared vision of like exactly where we want it to go.
Yeah. Do you have it like down on paper, or is that just something that you guys have commonly agreed on?
Well, I mean, it is. We have like got it written down of like.
Gotcha.
Sort of, obviously, a bit quite simple, like in a more of a sort of simpler context. At the moment. Like the blueprint, like the foundations of what it's going to be. Obviously, this time what's different is we've got a record label with it as well. So we've got one release already, and we've got another release coming out end of April.
Didn't even know that.
Yeah.
What's the record label called?
Gelato Sounds.
Gelato Sounds.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's like, and I think we're going to do more of a focus on the record label, releasing tracks and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where I then come in more as the one, like, I'm the one like sort of make music. So I'll be doing obviously music for my own individual artists, and then also as like the Gelato brand itself. Yeah. And obviously we sign other artists who make their tracks. Yes, a record label.
Yeah. What type of music are you? What type of genre are you going for? Sorry.
Tech house.
Tech house. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be like the music that you'll hear us releasing stuff will be like music that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we might move in, like as it grows, we might move into sort of different variations of house. But obviously, we want to keep Gelato. Yeah. It's tech house.
Gotcha.
Dirty bouncing beats, like.
So if anyone that's watching and wants to submit any sort of music, where can they go to submit music for the label?
contact@gelatosoundsuk.com.
Okay, cool.
Okay. We'll put up a thing up for something.
Yeah, like maybe I'll at the bottom and try to write it down. Just before we sort of round off, I just wanted to ask, I guess, in part of your journey was, so obviously like Gelato came in, it came to Birmingham, took over, basically, you guys started throwing, it was a massive party to begin with, and then you kind of went into Lab 11. Like for me, when you go into Lab 11 as a party, you're doing something right. Yeah. Like you're doing something well, right? When did it come to an end? Like sort of after how long was you running it, and what sort of made you guys stop running the parties?
Ran it for about a year.
Yeah.
And like towards the end, we were burnt out. Yeah. It was so much to handle. Obviously, on top of running Gelato, we were also running Crib, which was every Friday.
Gotcha.
Which Friday is a nightmare, and we're having to go out all the time.
Crib was what? Sorry.
Every Friday event.
It's a similar sort of sound or something completely different?
Similar sound, gotcha. But just rather than being like a sort of a big part we promote as like sort of a big event, it's just a weekly event, which would be like hit or miss.
Yeah, gotcha.
I do not recommend that.
Where was that?
The Monastery.
No way.
Yeah.
Never knew.
Yeah. But we had two events on the go. We had Gelato, which is the big one everyone knew, and then Crib. Obviously, like there's the dynamics of running an event which you want to like sell out big sort of high ticket numbers to then one you just want to get people coming in
through the door.
Yeah, and obviously like doing Friday nights as well, which was more like helping out the club, just building up a bit. Yeah, because obviously they make a lot of money in the bar.
How was you going about that, actually, to be fair? Because I think, especially within the Birmingham scene, I think Fridays, I mean, I don't go out as much now, to be honest, but like I think Fridays in general tend to be quite quiet.
Yeah, they're very, very hard to sell out, especially as it's like and like we're not booking big acts, or like we're booking very like local DJs. There's so we can't put too much into it because we know that we're not going to make much back.
Make the money back, yeah.
I can't, to be honest with you, I can't remember really why we did that. It was just so much unnecessary work.
Yeah.
It was just, I wouldn't do that again. Stick to...
What would the tactics be on trying to build... Like, because obviously you're saying there were... I guess the question that I'm trying to ask is, you said they were quite different in terms of, like, promotion. Like, obviously a big sellout event you promote in one way, and obviously an event that you run every single Friday you promote in a different one. What were some of those differences for you guys?
I suppose if someone's like with Gelato, you're trying to get someone to buy a ticket, get someone to, like, come along, and like, almost like you're really selling, like, there's a lot more to promote. There's, like, bigger acts. More going on around the brand. We're putting a lot more effort into it. Whereas Crib was just sort of, rather than selling tickets, we're just hoping that like your night will lead that way. Yeah, because not many people would buy tickets for a Friday night event. Like when you can probably get like similar sort of price on the door. Most of like what we'd get would be people coming in on the door. It was more almost just like trying to let people know that Monastery is open on a Friday this weekend. Like, I don't know. It's difficult to say. Obviously, like the gelato was a lot more effort. Plus, we had months to promote it, months of stuff to get ready, really put it in. Whereas because Crib was every week, it was just harder.
Yeah,
they're like. Yeah, I don't really know how to answer it.
I'm just asking because I know, because I've always thought, like, if I put myself in a position where, you know, you have to promote a night that's particularly quiet, for example, you're not booking headline DJs or anything else. So I've always thought, like, how do you promote a night in that way? And besides, like, somehow through use of social media and maybe WhatsApp group chats and Telegram group chats and you name it, to build some sort of, like, community, like,
I guess it's almost, we were trying to, like, we didn't want to put Gelato's name on it because we didn't want Gelato to become like a
separate thing.
Yeah, we want it to be like this night, like Gelato's once every 3-4 months, so people are going to go to it because it's only like if you miss this one, then it's 8 months since the last time you went. Yeah, but then if we start doing it every week, it sort of loses that like sort of exclusiveness, like the scarcity, I feel like what they call it. Like sort of when you get it like every week, there's no urgency to go. It's no like so like we kind of wanted to not attach the name to the gelato brand, but then also let people know that Crib is run by the same people. So you know
what to expect in terms of the brand.
I mean, like the brand was like, it was very strange. It was like Chinese New Year themed. Like
I think I remember, and it was like a house sort of logo. Yeah. I do remember. And
we used to we had this big backdrop of the logo. We used to spend hours decorating the club to be Chinese New Year's themed, of like lanterns everywhere. In fact, I think we did it because we found this, like, there's a Chinese shop in Birmingham that was closing down, and it was authentic Chinese like ornaments and stuff, and like all these symbols. We had like a cat with, like, you know, the thing that goes like that, and like, and we just for whatever reason, whatever possessed us to really just dive deep into this Chinese themed.
And how did that go in general with Crib?
I mean, to be honest with you, what I actually really liked about that, the decoration, the decor was good.
On point.
It was really good.
Yeah.
But it took hours to set up and take, because we had so many like lanterns and like everything's flammable, and it's like there's just so many. It was like like with gelato, we could just like pump up loads of inflatables. Have like big.
You guys are very good. To be fair, you guys are very good at doing the decor. The decor in general.
Whereas the Crib one was a lot more tedious. It was a lot of really small things to try and like fill it out and make it look good.
Yeah, and especially at the end of the night after you've had a couple of drinks as well. The last thing you want to do is be taking down lanterns off the top.
Because like we'd have like a week to set it up. We'd always end up doing it like the day before. But then it had to be taken down that night. We're there after, like, I remember Billy would give us like so most of Fridays I'd finish the night sober, and then obviously like we may have done well. So Billy would, like, me and Harry are the last ones still there. Billy's poured us like some huge whiskies. Which is a bit right. I'm just gonna have to like go through it, like drinking this, and he's like, poured us another one. Oh fuck! And he poured us another one, and now I'm absolutely smashed. And now me and Harry have got to stand on this step ladder, which isn't tall enough to like go up, so you've got to stand at the very top, drunk out of your mind, trying to pull these little lantern things from this net without breaking anything. And it was just I had to do that every time. I remember like having work at like I was supposed to start at like 8:30
in the morning the day after.
The event would finish like 3-4 a.m. and I would literally I'd get home at like 7:30 because we spend so long obviously just like sticking around. And then going to work. Well, I don't know how I used to do it. Obviously when you're that age.
Just when you're younger, you just do it. And like now if I go out on a night out, mate, like I'm fucking recovering for 2 days.
Yeah.
I don't even drink anymore, and to be honest with you, if I go out on a Saturday, like it still takes me till Monday to really just come back around properly. I
couldn't do that again. It was just so much work. Trying to get through it all.
So how did that go then? So obviously like you kind of ran it at the same time as Gelato, and did both of them kind of come to a conclusion at the same time, sort of roughly, or?
I think Crib, we sort of. I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember what happened with Crib. It's like we ran it and then we didn't. Like, I don't even remember it ended. I'm sure it ended like the same sort of time. I can't remember us saying we don't want to do it anymore, but we all hated it. We absolutely hated it. There was nothing worse than Crib, especially as like really to try and promote that event, to make it do well. We'd have to go around uni students and uni nights out. Obviously we were in uni as well, so we blended in quite well. And then just talking to people, giving them stuff. But to like run go out every Friday, having to go out Saturdays to meet other event owners, like to sort of build business, and then having to go out during the week on like Mondays and Thursdays for student nights. I think that was the most miserable I've been, was like being there on a Thursday night. You want nothing more than just get an early night and have because on top of this, I've got a demanding sales job and I'm in like my second year of uni, and I just need to rest. Like I've got so many like essays, like 10,000 word essays to write, and no time to write them. And now I'm forcing myself to go out on this Thursday night to then go and be like, you can't even just sit in the corner and just drink. You've got to be this bubbly person.
You got to do it,
Spend money that I don't have. Honestly, like I remember like the sitting there just before going out. It's like, I want to go out. I just don't want to go out. And I think like I actually, like by the end of when these events did stop, I just hated the idea of it. Almost made me feel sick going out. It was just the same thing every time. I was doing it so much. It's almost like I didn't really like enjoy the party anymore. It wasn't like in like my first year of uni where we're going out all the time just because we really want to. It's now we're doing it because we have to.
Yeah.
And it was like when COVID happened, I didn't miss nights out at all. It wasn't until COVID went on for so long, then when the nights out came back, there was only like 6 people allowed at a time.
Yeah.
Still, I didn't like it, but it was a good chance to see a lot of my friends who I haven't seen for years. So that was the only time, like, that's the only reason why it was fun. It wasn't until I went for my first holiday in Ibiza, went for a week, then I thought, okay, I'm starting to enjoy nights out again.
What was your relation like to music at that point? Because obviously, like when you don't go out as much, right? Like musically speaking, maybe you can still produce and listen to music, but I guess it could also raise the question of like, do I enjoy this as much?
I went back to like rap beats, like trap beats, like what I did before Tech House. And just sort of, and did enjoy it a lot more because I can just be a bit more free. I don't have to make tech house music anymore. And I was sick of it. I hated it. But now I can go back to rap beats as what I was making before and just sort of, and then enjoyed that a lot more. So like, in fact, when COVID hit and we lost the events, I really started to enjoy production. Because even before, the only time I produced was when I had to. Just because I just didn't have time to. And then it was like, I almost have to like force a track out. But now like I'm sitting in the studio, I don't have, obviously I'm furloughed, don't have uni's now on just like a webcam thing, so I don't have to travel to and from. Don't have to worry about the event, don't have to, all these things where like my day would be filled up with like from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, it's just something needs to be done and you're always behind on all these things, to then waking up thinking I don't actually have to do anything today. I've got to like sit through one lecture and that's it. And it's like I actually have time and I can actually enjoy the music that I make. And then that's, in fact, what I got into then was starting to learn how to play piano. And that's when I started learning to play piano, which then opened up a lot more
possibilities of like production, for example.
Yeah. And then obviously now you can play synths and stuff on piano, because it's a lot different from when you have to draw it in to when you can play it. Playing it is so much better.
I agree.
Maybe you can draw in some really good stuff, but I think you just don't capture.
You don't flow the same. No. I think like when you have the ability to play, although I'm not the greatest, you're allowing, because the way I was thinking about this the other day was you basically, whatever comes to you and you want to express it, you need to be able to express it in a way that kind of like happens instantaneously. You know what I mean? Like if it comes to you and you're sat there fucking like one note by one note by one note, go back, change it, like that's quite painstaking, as opposed to just being able to play it in, and maybe you didn't like that, but then you play it in again and you change it, and it's a flow. It's about, because I know people say about like, I was watching the Coldplay documentary and they were saying like, to be honest with you, some of the best tracks that we've ever made, we've made them in the quickest time ever. We haven't spent a lot of time. They've come to us quick. We wrote them down quick and we got them done. And it's because you're able to, whatever you're connecting with and receiving the message at the time, you're able to just get it down. So I've spent a little bit of time trying to think, although I don't have an answer to this. And if anyone else has got an answer, feel free to kind of come back. But I've spent some time thinking about like, how can you make music production feel like you're making music? Like actually, like I'm playing this stuff in, or maybe as, I did some drum lessons recently, but you're actually like, you're just vibing differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you get into it as opposed to sitting there like putting the drums in via mouse.
Yeah, I mean, it's just following your inspiration. Like you said, like when you get to like what Ruben was saying, you're not trying to force something out; it just happens. As long as like, you have a feeling, you have an idea, you have this, that, or the other, and you just have to be in the studio. And you just follow that natural sort of dopamine. You'll get this rush of energy, and it's true what you said. Like when the best music I've made is ones where I'll just make it from start to finish
quickly,
done in one day, mixed, mastered, everything done.
So is there anything else that you use apart from like a MIDI keyboard?
I do have like a drum pad.
Gotcha.
Which sometimes use, sometimes don't. I actually find like drawing in drums a lot easier.
Yeah.
Just because I'm just not that. I just can't get a beat that's good enough. So I use a drum pad, but I can't play it in as well as what I can draw it for drums.
Gotcha.
I've got a launch pad as well, which I've, to be honest, haven't used it for years.
Yeah.
Then the only other thing I use is just playing like guitar into it. But like really,
that's good to have.
That's really good to have, especially like if you've got because I couldn't record guitar for ages because obviously like the first couple of Macs I had weren't powerful enough, so the latency, the sounds you get on the actually coming through just sound terrible. It wasn't until obviously I got a really good Mac, good audio interface with on Native Instruments. There's this thing, Guitar Rig 6. The amps on there, the sounds you get are insane.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't. That's again, when I came back from my beat for after another production break, that's when I thought, like, you know what, I haven't tried recording guitars for a while. I thought, actually, I've got this new Mac. Maybe I can actually record guitars. And that's, again, opened up, like, that was almost like full circle. Because I got into music from playing guitar. That was my initial first, like, what made me want to do music as a career.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like went a full circle around all these different genres till finally I came back and landed on guitar again.
That's sick. Because you can use them skills like going forward.
Yeah.
Just one last question again, I promise. Last question before we round off. But if you were a producer starting out right now, if you're a DJ starting out right now, for example, I mean, let's just, I mean, obviously, I'm saying let's agree, but I guess what I'm saying is, in this day and age, I think without doing production, you will never be on the international stage as just a DJ. I think it's very rare. I think maybe there's a possibility. I'm not saying there isn't, but I think the chances are slim. You'd have to be absolutely an unreal DJ to be able to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that door's closed. Like, as it stands, what you can do on a DJ deck's like other people. Like, it was not like the days when you had like turntables, which is obviously really hard to use in comparison to like being able to use a sync. Now it's more about track selection. Yes, yeah. A lot more than
because you can learn the basics like relatively quickly, and unless you're James Hype, like
like before, like where DJ started, like how it is today, like Grandmaster Flash, where he would draw in on the records where the tracks would stop and start, where the kicks are, etc. Before in clubs, they would play a track, and then turn it off, take it off, put a new one on. There'd be like these gaps in between. He was the first one who then transitioned songs into each other, which is like almost the birth of DJing. Yeah. And I think like those, like, then you can go all the way up to, I think maybe I'd say like DJ EZ is the last, like really, his skill on the decks is like unmatched. Yes. But now DJing is all about track selection as opposed to like, obviously it is still like an art in itself, being able to like follow a vibe and stuff. But I think having your own music will set you apart. There's only so far you can like promote and release a mix, as opposed to like, because if you're listening to a DJ's mix, you're more likely to think, oh, what tune was this, as opposed to like what mix it was. Or there's a lot more like anyone can play the same sort of mix as you, but you can't play the same. A
similar sort of sound, but they can't make the same sort of track. Yeah,
especially as like what your selling point as a DJ is, as tunes you release is like sort of almost a taster of like who you are, what you do, what type of music you make. Yeah. But then why so many DJs have so many unreleased songs is because if you want to listen to these songs, like they'll like tease tracks for like years and years before they actually release it. Because it means that people say, if you want to listen to this track, you have to come and see me live. You have to buy a ticket to the event. That's where the money is with DJing. It's not so much with streaming. You don't get that. It's quite a niche genre. It's bookings and live events.
Yeah. So if someone was starting out now, for example, let's just agree that the first sort of point would be, DJ, but obviously as soon as you can, jump on the production.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think what set us quite far was like me, Liam, and Harry. We produced for years and years before even touching decks.
Yeah. And so you're producer first, DJs after.
Producer first, yeah.
Gotcha.
Which is like quite. I suppose it's quite rare, but
I guess it's kind
especially
of.
in
I guess it's quite rare now. Yeah.
I think especially in dance music, obviously, maybe with like trap sort of hip hop, then you are more likely to start producing because you don't really it's not that popular to DJ in it. You most likely get like or had a cracked version of FL Studio or something and then went from there.
Yeah.
But obviously because I produced trap music, then moved on to producing tech house music. Yeah. But then it wasn't until the start of Gelato I started DJing. That was my first gig.
Really?
And that was obviously started producing when I was 16. Did that gig when I was like 19, so like 3 years.
Gotcha.
Of producing before I even touched the decks.
Gotcha.
Like, yeah, so
that's nuts to be fair.
Yeah, it's like it's a weird come up of music. But
is there anything apart from obviously like starting production, and that's a whole topic in itself that we won't cover now because I think we could go on forever. But are there any other things outside of that in terms of I don't know, maybe like for example, one that I can think of the top of my head is like just something that I'm trying to do even now a little bit more of is get on the socials, like figure out what the hell you can post. No matter what stage you're at, like, and just start posting, like start building an image of like who you are. Is it just mixes you're doing? Great. Do mixes, post your mixes, this is, to be honest, this is something I'm working on right now because I've just realized I've kind of kept off the socials and like just kind of done stuff in the background, but never shouted about it,
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people do that. So I would say like start producing, figure out what your story is and who you are as an individual or what your values are and link it to a shareable way to be able to share that or just share your journey through social media. You don't have to be like, a Stussy or whatever making really good music to be able to just share your journey. Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't think it has to be something you have to like sit down and really figure out what your story is. Like you should know obviously who you are, what your story is. I think if you just like, you can take that sort of, I think
you'd be surprised.
I think the more you think, maybe obviously we're coming from two different angles here, but I think the more you think about it, the more you wonder, as opposed to just naturally being yourself. Obviously, it's a bit harder when when you're first on camera.
Yes, yeah.
You're potentially different, but then once you get used to, you said like this podcast now. Probably at the start we were both a bit like, hello, and then towards the end now it's like you're just used to it. It's like the cameras aren't even here, and I think like I'd say one artist like there's no like particular like. A lot of the drum and bass scene has a lot more like there's no one there with a story of like this like rags to riches come up sort of story. Like if you look at Mosey, he's just like he's just a geezer on TikTok. He's funny. And you've got Serum, who's like he's a lot older than most of the other DJs and stuff. Like he calls himself he's everyone's dad and stuff. He's hilarious as well. Then you've got Window Kid, who like they're all just like funny. They just put their personality online, and that's what people love. Like, I think Mosey's obviously he was really big in the scene before anyway, but now he's huge because he just makes TikToks, and there's no like it's not this you can see his like demeanor in there. He's not trying to be anything. He's just himself.
He is,
and that's what people like just genuine. And there's nothing crazy about his account. It would just like say a funny thing that happened the night before. Like, who was that girl wearing so and so, and like.
Yeah.
But they're just you'd have to sort of watch it to see what I mean. But like they're just
no. I get it. I completely understand where you're coming from. I guess the perspective that I was coming from and the reason I was saying it was because like I'll give you an example. Yeah, like Fisher for example is a little bit on the funny side. He's comedic. He's known as the crazy guy, which kind of goes hand in hand with the sort of like the DJing, the production, the partying, the being wild, so on and so forth. Whilst on the other side, you've noticed a little bit of changes with like although Chapter and Verse like the producer is a funny individual himself, he's also like light-hearted, playful, got loads of energy. You can see I've also seen a lot of his posts starting to go in the direction of like a little bit of self-development, a little bit of motivation. So what I mean is like by figuring yourself out, I mean figure out what category you fall into, and it's okay to fall in either category, right? Because I think ultimately you become your own brand by being whatever you are. Like we're kind of saying the same thing to an extent, but I guess what I'm saying from my perspective is I had to kind of sit down and think about like what does Alex represent in some ways, or who am I, and like what do I enjoy, and how can I portray that through social media as opposed to just documenting and hit and go. Because it's quite a tedious thing, you know, like putting yourself out there and not knowing how people are going to judge it. And you kind of get to a point where you're just like, c'est la vie, like it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You know what I mean? But it can be quite daunting to begin with.
Yeah, I suppose like it's like I say, when it's daunting, it's harder to just sort of just be natural and calm and who you are, because of this overhead of like, you are now about to expose yourself to everyone, like your real and true self. And I think even like kind of same philosophy as what I was saying with music is when you first sort of like, right, you need to make music that people like, i.e. you need to make content, you need to have a story people like, to then on the flip side you're just saying content that you like, that you want to see, that you like, having a sort of personality that you find funny, making jokes that you like, and I think as long as you're not like incredibly
offensive,
as long as you're not then
just
it doesn't really matter.
Being,
you can have like any sort of opinion about anything, like the more niche and the more like weirder it is, probably the better. The more like it's just more you. It's not like a general opinion you hear everyone say like, I can't even think of an example right now, but you know what I mean? Like the more like just the more when you get really deep thoughts in your head where you think, oh, if anyone knew I was thinking like this, I think I'm really weird. But then you can might actually like say what you're thinking about, and then
as long as you're not talking about murdering people. Or anything like that. No, I get what you're saying though. It helps differentiate you from the masses in so many aspects, and it builds that brand image of like who you are ultimately.
And you over time you get more comfortable about doing it.
When you realize that there's other weirdos like you out there,
exactly,
that become your following and your cult.
Because you'll be surprised the amount of people who share the same weird thoughts you have, that you think, God, like if anyone thought this, you'd be surprised the amount of people who think the same as you, everyone's weird, everyone's silly, and it's just like who shows it and who doesn't. But
for sure
it's just about trying to be yourself, but obviously like you say, the difficulty is portraying it on social media, because who you are in yourself and then like translating that to a post or a story
can be good.
But I think like if you're the more like raw human you keep your videos, the better. So like maybe like what would do better is not so like sort of an over like a huge production and a video that you're making, but just talking to the camera after you finish work, walking down the street in the wind, then like
the reality of like
something that's it's just more human, you know.
I agree.
It's hard to put into words like exactly what I mean, but just try and be genuine. There's no real answer. Like the only thing you can do is just find your own answer which works for you. Like
exactly, and I think as you as an individual and whatever your brand image needs to be when you promote,
like you can't wait around for someone to. Obviously, you're looking for answers, but only you can find out what they are. Which sounds like a contradicting statement, but. No,
it's true though, because I feel like, you know, we talked about this.
No one's going to give you the answer.
Exactly, exactly. They can give you guidance, but they can't give you the answer because it's individual. Like you have to figure out how, what represents you and like how you want to represent that thing online, basically.
Yeah, like I remember it's like I can't remember who said it, but it was like someone said, if I gave you the answers to life, you will never find out what they are, and it's because everyone's answer is different.
Yep.
Because they think what the question is like. Obviously, like you know, what is the answer to life? It's more what is the answer to my life. Is a different question to what is the answer to your life.
For sure.
Obviously, it's a similar thing, but obviously, it being different people,
completely different experiences,
different answers.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
Again, it's just we've gone quite deep into this really from where.
No, but look. Ultimately, it is very true though, because that's what it comes from. Like, I think, you know, looking at like the why of why you do things is very important to then decide like who you are as an individual. What do you value? Like, what are your morals? What are your beliefs? And then ultimately, based off the back of that, you start making decisions. And the decisions that you make, and the things that you think, and the thoughts that you want to put out, are all based on who am I and why am I doing these things? And then that gets portrayed through the use of social media and so on and so forth.
Like, I think the best thing you could like to find out about yourself is to find out of how you got to where you are. So look back on your life, what decisions have you made? What other events that have occurred like within yourself or around you that has led to you being here? So once you can see where you're going, or once you can see how you got here, you can then see where your life's going. And once you can see where your life's going, you can then change, and it's easier to like sort of navigate through life. And I think the only way you can really get to a point where you have more control over like where you want to go is by finding out how you got there. So you need to know what decisions you've made, etc., to be where you are, and then there's the sort of tools to change where you're going. Because you might see that actually you're going down repeating the same mistakes,
same patterns, yeah.
And it's going to be the same thing. So once you can see that, and once you know why it's the same, then you can change. Sure. And yeah, it's quite like I suppose you can only really answer this in like a sort of a vague way, but
it's because it's individual to everyone, and I completely agree with you. Like, I think it takes time to sit down and just be able to work that out.
Yeah.
It's not something that can be solved overnight. It's over time you can work it out.
Yeah.
But Freddi, it's been an absolute fucking pleasure, man.
It's been a pleasure.
This has been a very interesting podcast, and I'm sure a lot of the people that we're watching will get a lot of value out of it. And thank you so much for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Love it, man.